we roll with the punches, and now we're here, right? So, but before I do introduce Mayor Maness, we share something in common. So I grew up in a town called Laurel, Maryland. It's a town in between DC and Baltimore, right off of the Interstate 95, between 295. And it was a big farmland community full of trees and grass and deer. And then they decided one day that they wanted to build a mall. And everybody got all mad. And what are we doing? My granddaddy, I used to ride dirt bikes over there. You know, oh no, here comes an apartment building. Oh no, here's a bunch of hotels, right? So this was back in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I believe Mayor Maness' wife had their first date in Laurel, Maryland, where I grew up. So what it was is it was a town similar to this. It grew exponentially pretty quick. And right now, you know, it is what it is, but it's a booming city. And I know we talked about that at one point. So, but pretty much Mayor Maness is a native of Tennessee and born and raised here in Tennessee. As a kid, he grew up on a farm and he learned the value of hard work at a young age. And working mornings and long hours, they still his work ethic that he has today. When he was first elected to District 2 City Commissioner back in 2010 and was appointed Vice Mayor in 2011, has been reappointed to that position 4 times. And he's the longest serving Vice Mayor of the city. And then in 2020, he was elected to the 14th Mayor of the City of Mount Juliet. And he actually serves on the Wilson County Mount Juliet Development Board, Greater Nashville Regional Council Transportation Policy Board, and he also serves, I talked to you last night, you were at church, right? So he serves at his church as well. So, and he's also a member of the Mount Juliet Parks and Greenway Board. He sponsored legislation to remove, you know those red light cameras we have out there? We don't have it, right? So he sponsored legislation to remove the city red light cameras, establish a fire department, and fight for the recall provision. He also champions customer service, public safety, planning, and government transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Maness.
Well, you know, the problem not having a mic is you don't know what to do with your hands necessarily. So forgive me if I'm not speaking loud enough. Just wave your hand or something, and I'll speak up. But Gerard's right, and thank you for the introduction, the wonderful introduction. I met my wife in Silver Springs, Maryland. We were working there at a day camp, and it was for inner city kids from Washington, D.C. And they would go around to various colleges and recruit, and they had this directory that they would send out to everybody who was coming to the camp. And I was listed there. My wife was going to a school in Oklahoma, and I was at a school in Dallas. And there was a list of men that were, you know, from the school in Dallas, and you know, she'd made friends with somebody else in school. They're like, that one's taken. He's dating somebody. This Maness guy is the only single guy who's coming from the college you're coming from. And her, no joke, her friend says, you're going to have to look this guy up and marry him. And no joking. She met me. We, I don't know, we flirted a little bit. You know what 19-year-olds do at camp, all alone, distance, you know, far away land for me in Maryland. But we had our first date. I think she first asked me. She said, "Will you be my bus buddy?" And what that meant was, on the weekends it was a day camp. So on the weekends they would take us on trips, and we went into Washington D.C. My first time in Washington D.C. got to see all the sites, you know, the monuments and everything. We hung out, and since the summer of '96, we've really never been separated since. And after that, I asked her out, and we had like Gerard said, our first date in Laurel. It was at the good old Olive Garden. So we had our first date, and you know, we've been going ever since. I took her from there. She was originally from New York, and I was from West Tennessee, a town of 350 some odd people. I spoke what they called questionable English, and still do for a lot of you, but I took her from New York back to meet my parents, and I spent, I'd say, the greater part of that time translating between the two. I remember well, she'd come up to me, and we were in the living room, and we didn't have one of those open floor plans. It's just the farmhouse there. She'd come over to me, and she says, "Do you not pasteurize your milk?" And I said, "I don't know. I think they get it at the Walmarts or Piggly Wiggly or something like that." And I said, I'm sure it's past right. She goes, your mother is cooking the milk. And I was like, why would she cook the milk? She said, I don't know, but she just come up to me, shoved it in my face and said, smell this, I think it's burnt. And I said, burnt? No, she didn't. What do you, burnt? She said burnt. She didn't say burnt. She said, what is burnt? So that's the first, that was our first dive into translation. We went on from that to sit down with a dinner, and my mother told her about when my sister fell out of a treehouse and broke her arm, and how she had to carry her to the hospital. And I noticed my girlfriend at the time was so intrigued when my mother carried her. She said, well, how far is the hospital? And my mom said, oh, I don't know, about 25 miles. She said, well, why did you carry her? And she said, well, she had a broken arm. And of course, after dinner we got alone, she asked me, she said, your mother just doesn't look that strong, but she carried your sister for 25 miles? I said, no, honey, that's she's giving her a ride, you know. Carry somebody. And in her mind, she pitched her, over her shoulder, and leave the old man behind. So she's off to that, and, various phrases like coming up a cloud, across the holler. I mean, she had to. And my father, who's made a living for all of my life, who only spoke in pronouns, go over yonder and get that. I mean, it was fun, at least. But, we've been married now for 24 years. We just celebrated our 24th anniversary last year. I'm extremely, extremely happy, a blessed man. We got married at a young age, but I was smart enough to do one thing. I was going to lock her up and get her off the market before somebody else moved in there. Because I knew if I waited, she would see, how much better she could do if I didn't move in quickly. But now, after 24 years of marriage, we have two daughters, 15, 17 years old. I kind of get a little sad thinking about, we spent the majority of our time together. They're looking at colleges now, moving on and stuff like that. And it's hard on Dad, but, they're my world. They're I like to say my perfect imperfect girls. And, sometimes we put a lot of pressure on our children to perform, but I am so blessed, so happy that I have the family I do and the support that I get from them. Well, who's glad that we're together today? I mean, we did this last year over. Yeah, that's true. We did this last year over Zoom, and I think maybe there's some strategy with no mic. We'll keep it short, probably. But I think last year it was difficult doing it over Zoom. It was the first time I ever talked to a computer screen without seeing anybody on the other end for 7 hours, I think is what it went or something. But I think today we're going to trim it down to at least 6 or so. We joke a little bit about the situation, but last month I did what I thought was one of the hardest things I'd had to do, which was call Mark the day before, basically, and say, I can't make it. I can't go. And, Mark made that call extremely, extremely easy and very, very understanding. I apologize. I know we've all been through it. We've all faced over these last couple of years. I can think of several friends, coworkers, people that go to church with, family members that we've lost. And I'm sure everybody in here has been impacted in some way by that and what we've gone through. But again, I am so happy to be back together. The thing that I guess kind of bothers me now, the one thing that kind of divides us still some is maybe vaccination status. And, we're all fully vaccinated in my household, but it didn't stop it from impacting us. And, I know some of us are vaccinated and some of you are not going to get vaccinated. And listen, I understand both sides of the subject. I'm just here to say, let's not let that one subject divide us. Let's keep going on. We've got a great city. Let's keep going. So, with that, hope the food's good. Speaker's questionable, but we're going to get started. Somebody said there's a birthday coming up. Somebody's having a big 5-0, I believe. City of Mount Juliet, I think. Yeah. And one of the things we talked about a little bit going into this was the past. On the next slide, I've got a picture of the 1974 budget. And I'll tell you right now, you will not fit our budget on one slide now anymore. I think Sheila puts a lot of work into putting those slides, not slides, but the budget together. We get a binder now every year. There's maybe a couple pages of revenue, about 100 pages of expenditures. So, but anybody have a guess at what the total budget for 1974 in the city of Mount Juliet was?
650,000.
150, 250.
We got one very close. $129,000. And if you look at it, you'll see 35,000 of that came from the previous year carryover. They had 94,000 in revenues projected for that year. So they had, and we'll talk a little bit about how things have changed on this. But you know, if you took that and just to put it in perspective, last night couldn't sleep, sending Andy emails at 2 in the morning. But I thought, you know what I don't know is what does that look like in 2022 numbers? That works out to about $700,000. So in today's dollars, that'd be about a $700,000 budget back in 1974. Some other notable things. 74 was the same year we purchased the first fire engine. And we operated a volunteer fire department, I believe from 74 to 86. 86 is when we entered into the agreement with WEMA. And they took over. I think that fire engine wound up being donated to WEMA, if I remember right. I think our ambulance wound up with Watertown. 1975, we signed the first mutual aid. That just means that we're contractually entered into a contractual agreement how we would back each other up, meaning WEMA and the Mount Juliet Fire Department. Then in 1976, we leased we call that our first city hall. Right there is the current photo of it. That's 68 East Hill Street. Anybody remember the city being in there? Before my time, a little bit. 1978. Oh, we got one taker. 1978, we purchased our first city hall. If you look at it, this budget ordinance is for $200,000, and with that, we got 3.5 acres of land plus the building there. In today's dollars, that works out to about $800,000. A lot of you will recognize this building beside the Mount Juliet Church of Christ. It's our first home as a city. In 1984, the land was donated for Charlie Daniels Park. This was donated by Mr. Monty Myers. 14 years later, we established, in 1998, established the Parks Department. In 1985, our population numbers got to the point we went from a 3-member commission to a 5-member commission. And we all know, if you want to make something better, add more politicians. In 1995, we moved to the current city hall. Didn't quite look like that back then, but yeah, thank you. Here we have a graph of our year-to-date inflation numbers for. No, this is actually, if somebody wants to focus on flattening the curve, here's one to take on the inflation. This is not inflation numbers. Here's our population numbers as a city. 1972. You know, we started out as a city, about 1,500 people is the estimate on it. To now, the 2020 census shows that we're a little bit over 39,000. I think it's safe to say that we've eclipsed the 40,000 mark. And it being 2022, we could have a special census every 3 years. So you know what I'm going to ask for in next year's budget. So it's a special census. We get a lot of revenue that's tied to our population numbers. The census costs a little money, but they pay for themselves quickly. But this is the growth curve. And when I got involved with the city, we were about a population of 24,000, and now we're pushing north of 40,000. There's been a lot of growth in the city. You know, the people that have been here for a while, you know, you've done a lot of things right. A lot of people that want to come here and enjoy it with you. So say good job. Now we'll look at the present state first. And I'll start out by saying this right now. The state of our city, it's strong. And one of the first things we'll look at is the finances of this city. And I'll take these next 3 slides and you know, I'll compare them to any city out there in the situation that we find ourselves in. But, you know, this didn't happen by accident. We've got some great staff, wonderful city judge. I don't know if she's here today, but we got our deputy city manager, our fellow board members. We got one in attendance with us today that are all working hard to a common vision on this. So our city is in a strong condition. It's in a strong state. If you look at our total revenues as a city, we're coming in at just over 41 million in total revenues. Utility, which is our sewer department, excluding those numbers, we're bringing in $41 million in revenue. Of that, approximately about 60% of that comes in through taxes. Our sales tax in 2020, you can see very clearly on here where two things happened at basically the same time. One, more people started staying home, working from home. We had a lot more daytime traffic inside the city. It reflects in the numbers you see up there. One thing that also happened was at the same time, this is when the rate increase took effect, that when we increased the sales tax rate from 9.25 to 9.75, you start to see those numbers. Since those two things have happened, there's one key thing that's never happened. We haven't seen since. We've not seen sales tax revenue come in below $1 million a month since that point. We're very close right now to having our first $2 million month. And these numbers are big for the city, one from our funding revenue. So, but every penny you see reflected on this board too, that goes to the city, an equal amount when it comes to this growth goes to our school systems. So half our local option is going to the school systems. When you see this here and this reflect, you're not only supporting, when you shop Mountain Juliet first and you choose to shop here and support the local businesses that are here, you're not only supporting our city itself, but you're supporting the school systems as well. So that's something I'm really proud of is the way people have got out, shopped, have stayed involved and engaged in our local community. If you look at our expenditures, we have $27.6 million budgeted in our expenditures. If you look back 2 slides on that, I talked about having a $41.1 million budget. So roughly what this reflects is that for every $3 of revenue, the city is budgeting $2 of revenue on this. And I said I'd compare this to any city out there. There's not many places out there, or many cities, or any other government entities out there that are taking in $3 and saving $1 out of every $3. And that's the type of budgeting we do. Another thing I'm particularly proud of is our debt service is below 6%. That's 6% of budgeted. But if you compare that to revenue, it's only making up 4% of our revenue since we're only spending $2 out of every $3 on this. We've got a lot of people that have worked very hard, and some of our departments, fire department, for example, have done so much, with the funding that they've had. We've done some things to change that and work on it and get that growing. But you've got some people that have been very frugal and very careful with their dollars. And we'll talk a little bit more about where that third dollar is going to wind up on there. We're not just tucking it away in one of those vaults we have from the old bank there at the City Hall. Property tax. Right now, our fire department is running about $2.7 million budget. You can see every penny of the property tax is dedicated to funding the fire department. One of the things we did early on was we moved the fire department out of a dedicated fund, solely funded from property tax, funding it from the general fund. And this is important. Property tax numbers here, these are basically static numbers in these. When inflation goes up, you can count on at the same rate and the same value there, you're going to get the same number of dollars in every year. Only through growth do you increase it. The thing is, when growth comes in, when the property assessor comes back in and adjusts the properties for inflation, the state automatically moves that rate down. We saw a property tax rate start out in 2011 at 20 cents per assessment. I believe it was around 2015, 2016. It was then adjusted down to 16.64 cents. And then this year we reduced it to 15 cents to come along a few weeks later and then reduce it down again to 11 cents. So, I made the joke about inflation, but these numbers here, they're kind of static whether we're suffering inflation or not. That's one of the values that we see from having our fire department being able to operate out of the general fund is sales tax. If a loaf of bread goes up to $5 a loaf, which may or may not be a joke, but if a loaf of bread goes up to that, we're collecting more sales tax off that as a city, so we're able to adjust. I'd argue that inflation has probably impacted us much more negatively when it comes to stuff like building a fire station than the value that we receive from the property tax increase. But this is one way of really hedging against that, and I really thank the board for supporting that change and making that happen. Our police department, Gerard talked about the cameras that were removed. That's so long ago, not everybody remembers the cameras. The original cameras that were removed, those were the red light cameras. And I like to say the difference was the red light cameras turned the honest person into a criminal when they snapped the picture national statistics, I don't remember, it's been almost 10 years ago since we outed them, but I think the national statistics were about 98, 99% of those tickets were coming from not turning not coming to a full stop before turning right on red. And I looked at one of the studies out there, and they show, well, you know, it was all sold to us on the guise of safety, but one of the studies out there showed that you were probably more likely to be struck by lightning 2 times in the same day as to have a fatality from not coming to a full and complete stop on red. So being sold to us on safety is a little questionable on those things. So we investigated that. Those were removed, and contrast them with the current cameras we have, or the LPRs, license plate readers. These cameras don't turn honest citizens into criminals. These cameras take the actual criminals away from the honest citizens. And what we've seen is we're averaging, you know, recovering more than 1 stolen car a week, 57 a year that have been recovered by the system. We're taking almost 1 wanted person off the street every week out there. It's so 48 for the last year that have been taken off. Some other stuff, stolen license plates, trailers, missing adults. You see silver alerts, amber alerts. It's all put in there. And to get on this system, it's not from sharing MP3s on the internet. That's not how you wind up on the system being searched for. This is from the TBI database. When I pulled into here, I heard on the radio they were talking about the news, national about security. I gotta say, before the first scandal went live on this, we put in place one of the most stringent security policies when it comes to our camera system. I know in the state, and it may be one of the most stringent ones in the nation. And it wasn't an effort where we were trying to hinder the police's ability to do their job in any way. The police were great partners. They called me up, and I know some of the conversations that I had, they were like, we kind of think this is a little loophole here in the law. You know, you might want to add this in there. So, you know, it's something we worked as a partnership. The program has been a great success, and, you know, I would encourage any city that's looking into this. You know, for me, one of the selling points on it is technology and social media is being used against us to organize crime against us, especially when you look at minors. It's time that we put the tools in place to keep people that are just stealing the cars, coming into our community, parking them, going around checking all the doorknobs in the neighborhoods, ditching the cars and calling somebody else to pick them up. So, and you know, these numbers here, you know, for years we've looked and we've seen these things trending downward in the city. I want to say, first of all, still one of the safest cities out there in the state of Tennessee. You look at this, total crashes. These are trends that since the lockdown has happened, that we're seeing these trends nationwide in the number of crashes. And I don't know if it's all we went home so long and forgot how to drive, but crash rates have been up. There may be a little truth to that. Yeah. But we've seen some other things. You know, the lockdowns, we've had some issues with mental health that the police have had to respond to that they weren't responding to before. And it's reflected in these numbers. I'm proud of our police department. I'm proud of the effort. I'm proud of the Board of Commissioners and their commitment to public safety in our city. And Mount Juliet is still one of the best places to call home regardless of these numbers. And, you know, we will continue to work. There's trends out there that are nationwide trends. We're starting to see them here, putting officers on the street. Our fire department, talking about the present, seeing about northwards of 3,400 calls in total volume. One of the things to really notice from these numbers that are to call out is, if you look at overlapping calls, we're looking at over 32% of our calls are overlapping, meaning we have a group out working an incident, whether it's medical or fire or whatever they're working and what they're being called to respond to. And 1 out of 3 times we're getting a second call on top of that. And we're operating 2 stations right now, so that's putting us at capacity when it comes to number of stations. Now, they've done some great things to divide it up, rapid response units to be able to respond more efficiently in terms of delivering people to the site, in terms of cost. Put a lot of things in place. But this is why it's so important as we go into our future is to get our 3rd station online. You can see on there, over $6 million in savings as far as property savings with this program. So our fire department's just been a huge success. If you look here, you can see that over 66% of the calls are for medical, rescue, and emergency services out here. And that's one of the reasons that you'll hear us, even though we're not in the ambulance business in the city providing ambulance services, but what we are in the business of is first responders. We're putting people on site to make sure you immediately get the quality of care. Our department is committed to being able to deliver the highest quality of care on the site. And we're turning out a product to where we'll be able to go on site and do everything that the paramedics can do there on site outside of transportation. And that's been a big focus of ours. If you look at this is, I was sitting in the corner pub, or CP now, sitting in there with somebody, and I said, you know, King Martin, I said, over in that booth, and we sit here for hours on end, and we talk about the times, crazy talk, fire department. And I don't know if you can read this. This is a picture of a tweet I sent out on August 8th, 2012. And I show this, I'm saying the fire department, when it was proposed back in 2012, was not necessarily a slam dunk at the time. There was a lot of questions, there was a lot of criticism when it went out there. You can see down at the bottom, my tweet had 0 hearts. No one. Where were my 35 followers when I needed them? Had 0 hearts on it, and it was kind of a dare. We had somebody make this mock-up patch, which is very similar to the patch that they use now. Somebody made this mock-up patch. If we laid it on top of a budget there, just took a picture and just sent it out there and just see if anybody would say anything. And it was a little bit later on during that year, we did a proposal for the fire department. It was adopted, a little controversy. We'd gone back and forth with the county, and resolution was passed. You know, hey, we're not going to do anything else. You guys own your own. So we started our fire department. A little bit of controversy around it. And it's the same thing we're going through now as we talk about ambulance service. I'll tell you, we're opening a 3rd station, and I can speak for myself, and I think the rest of the Board of Commissioners when I say this. Our 3rd station is going to have an ambulance in it. And it's not about the interlocal governments and all that stuff. It's from the standpoint of the focus of taking care of our citizens. That's where we're looking at it. It's from the citizen standpoint, and we'll work backwards from that and work the details out on the back end. But the number one thing that we're doing as a city is we're going to make sure that the resources and emergency services that the city needs in here. If you look back at the latest slide showing 2010 when we added the 2nd station in the city, we're at a population of 24,000. Now we're at 40,000. So it's time for a 3rd ambulance in the city. Public Works, 20 different projects going on in various stages right now. You know, I talked about earlier in the budget numbers, we're budgeting $2 out of $3. And if you want to know where that third dollar is planned to wind up, if you look there, under estimated cost, $186 million for those projects. Luckily, we don't need to write a check on the front end for $186 million. This will be payable as the projects move along in various phases on that. I believe our number is, we've got about 40 million, I believe, roughly on hand in cash to go through these things. And, you know, we're diligently trying everything we can to dedicate as much money as we can financially to these projects on the front end to be able to tackle these. These projects take time, takes some time to get through them, but you look at the bridge widening there, I think Andy, it was 2014. 2014 was when the planning on that started. And you see those type of projects on there, and what you don't always realize is the engineering goes in first, the environmental studies go in, and then it's the right-of-way, it's the utility negotiations. All those things happen before you ever see any equipment show up on site. If you're ever curious about any of these projects, we have the capital improvement dashboard on our city website. You can go there, you can click on these, you can get down to the documents on these that have been signed, the plans, the money, the budgeted, what portion the city's paying versus grants on these things. It's a really neat tool. If you ever want to know what's going on, it's all there on the website. Look it up. If you look at a road and you say, this is crazy, why ain't somebody doing it? Go to the website. You can probably see the progress, the discussions that are going on a lot of these things. Over the last several years, one thing the city's been really successful at is grants. If you see from this, our total grant funding over the last 10 years is just north of $37 million, and that represents a huge effort on the part of staff for being proactive in getting our plans in front of the MPO or the GNRC, getting the transportation improvements or the tips in place so that we're in the running for these grants. We get traffic signaling alone, almost $4.5 million. Our bike and pedestrian improvements is north of $10 million in grants. And our roads approaching $23 million in grants over that period of time. So that's a huge standpoint. When you look at a budget, an operating budget that we have at about $27 million, I mean, this represents a significant investment in our city, and I am extremely happy with the effort that our staff has put in place. New businesses, well, we've had a little activity in the last year despite all the challenges. ML Rose, O'Reilly's, even Amazon coming online here. You know, these are folks that, you know, some have worked hard with them. I know I joke about Kenny. He calls me sometimes. He's like, "Mayor, good news. Somebody's coming." What is it? Well, I can't tell you what it is just yet, but somebody's coming. So every year when I see this slide, you know, I think back about all the progress, the conversations that have taken place to get to this point. So, you know, with that, let's take just a moment to talk about the future of our city. We got a lot of people in here, you know, recognize that have put a lot of time into the city and bringing it to what it is. Our police department and our future, we're looking at this project come along as part of the 10-year plan for the police department. There's a plan to expand the existing facility. You know, we've had 2 tornadoes inside the city in the last, you know, just the last couple of years that have hit. And, you know, one of the things that's really front and center for us is a hardened dispatch center, so that the folks behind the scenes that are doing the dispatch, the coordination on this, can safely do their jobs and have something that's going to be able to stand up to the type of storms that we seem to be receiving. You know, this is a plan for expansion of our existing fire department. It's not off the table that we may not just build a new building. This started out as a $6.6 million project. Then inflation got a hold of it, and well, it's not 6.6 million anymore. It kind of looks like that population chart. But, you know, that's stuff outside of our control necessarily when it comes to the price of steel and other stuff, the availability of contractors. But we're looking at all options, and, you know, I think it's safe. I know I'm safe for myself, but I think it's safe to say to the rest of the Board of Commissioners that we're committed to have something in place for the police department. It's going to take us the next 10 to 20 years as far as expansion and growth for them. Our fire department, making great progress up there. This is just to the side of Green Hill High School up there. You can go by and see the construction going on right now. Our fire department, you know, they got plans for to open this, which is our 3rd station. We're bringing on 6 additional firefighters, which is going to bring us closer to the NFPA 1710 standard. And that's just the standard for what we should have for a city this size. It's going to bring us closer to that. We're going to be hiring our first fire marshal, I believe, is in the plan soon. Right now, we have Chief Luffman, who, well, he was chief, deputy chief, fire marshal, personal assistant, everything else there for several years. If you compare that to the org charts at other cities, you'd be amazed how many hats this man has worn. So we're finally moving into the point we're going to get him some help with the fire marshal program. Got a great deputy chief that we brought aboard here, Chief Edwards, and I am so happy. You know, right now our city sets at a ISO level 5, and the lower the number, the better. I said when I started to run, we was going to get it to a 4, and well, I don't think we're ever going to hit a 4. And that may be because we surpassed a 4, but I can't announce anything because I'm just told we can't. So just leave it at that. But we're making a lot of progress. We'll move on to public works before I get in trouble. Stormwater. Stormwater is something the city's never had a stormwater department. We moved into the study for actually establishing the stormwater department. If you live at the top of the hill, this may not be your top of the priority, but if you live at the bottom of the hill, stormwater and runoff is an important thing to you. You know, we got a project right now in the budget for $250,000 for Old Lebanon Dirt Road. that's working. We're doing just signed the contracts for some work at Mundy Park for some runoffs there that have been impacting the Belinda City area for several years. Commissioner Mullally, I know, has worked hard on that project to bring some relief. So that's two things we've got in place. We've got areas that flood and are being impacted, and it's time as a city that we're stepping up, committing the resources to bring this in the right direction for us as a city. Another thing our Public Works Department is bringing, we're now going to bring in an C-Click fix. I think it really should be called C-Click and somebody else fix, but you're welcome to fix it yourself if you can. It's a great little app. I got to do a little testing on it. Actually had a little mishap, but anyway, that's what testing is for. If you're out walking or something, see a stop sign that's leaning or something that needs a little work, you just take a picture of it, send it in. Maybe somebody dispatched to take care of it. It's just another. Slides to make it in here. Without him, this talk would have undoubtedly 150 slides. We would probably be going well into the afternoon. So thank you, Travis. Just want to recognize Commissioner Mullally over here for her support and involvement with I think all of our city staff, city manager, our fire department, our police department back there, and everyone's worked so hard to make this city what it is and the success that it is. You, the local business owners that have come here and invested in our community. And I can't help but think back to 50 years ago as we talk about the birthday of the city. they were people that had the courage. You know, they had the courage, they had the vision, and they were also brave enough to step up. And let's start, Steve. I mean, how do you start the conversation? Just to do that. You come out of the need and necessity for this side of the county with some growth, and we had a lot of people come together, stepped up, and made this. And I'm just happy to be here to build on the foundation that they laid. And again, thank you for everything that you do. Thank the chamber for being here. And can't say it enough. Shop Mount Juliet first. Shop it second. Shop it all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
But before we go, I mean, we talk about fire and police department. Any city employee or anybody who works for the city, please stand up. Please. A lot of growth from 1972 to now, and I mean, everybody's a great part of that. We really appreciate it. So, on behalf of the chamber, we're going to make this donation in Mayor Maness' name to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and we want to thank the courtyard for having us here, as we always do every single month, and great facility and great lunch. And is there something is there anything else?
Can I have 30 seconds?
Absolutely.
There's a couple of groups that, and this annual celebration that we had was an overwhelming success, and we're still living off of that. But there's two groups of people that I'd like to take this opportunity. If you were a sponsor and went out on a limb with us this year and took a chance, would you please stand so we can show our appreciation if you were one of the sponsors? I know y'all are in here. There were more than that. This was a real stretch financially, and y'all helped make our dreams come true, so we really appreciate it. Also, I know that Rob Porter and Rob Porter can't be here right now, but and I know there's one more that was Galen Wilson. We're also on the committee, but we do have Tracy Pope, Gerard, Lee, Elena, Michelle, Kathy, Julie, and Lisa. That was the committee that put together this annual celebration. Can we show our appreciation? If I missed anybody, I'm sorry.
You did.
Who did I?
You.
Oh, no, you know better than that, because every time somebody come up with an idea, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. No, we can't afford it. We were talking $24 a plate, and we barely paid our bills the last time. You want $65 a person for appetizers? Oh my God. No, I appreciate it.